I was in a meditation the other day and this temple came up in my meditation. The temple started speaking through me. Who is speaking through me? I'm not entirely sure, but I do know it's connected to the queens, the kings, the priests, the priestesses of these temples. And what comes through for me is the temples are with you. And they shared with me that, yes, there was interdimensional work done at this temple. Welcome to Soul Pod, where science meets mysticism and your inner wisdom leads the way. I'm your guide, Crystal Cassidy, and together we will bridge the seen and the unseen, science and spirituality, the practical and the profound. From quantum physics to energy centers, near-death experiences to extraterrestrial contact, join us as we delve into the mysteries of consciousness and journey together towards a more awakened, compassionate, and soul-connected world. Find your seat, drop in, and let's go on a journey together. Welcome back, light beings, to another episode of Soul Podcast. Crystal here, your host. Really excited for this much anticipated part 2 about Egypt. So my goal with this is, even if you haven't been to Egypt, is to really give you an idea of the energetics and the initiation process as a whole. Egypt just happens to be a very powerful portal and is really interesting. Ever since I've been, I'm hearing about quite a few other spiritually attuned people that are either just going or are going in the next few months. So my theory here is that there's something going on with Egypt right now, and it's also very interesting that there was a big celebration for the activation of the Egyptian Museum, and a big moment for Egypt as a nation, as a people, as an energy. And I don't think this is all a coincidence, and that I was just there before the museum had fully opened. And it was a soft opening, so we did get a chance to go in and check it out, and it is amazing. But again, I want to bring Egypt to you, and I want to bring some of these concepts to the forefront, because I think there's a reason that they're calling to us as a collective. As I mentioned before, it's only been a couple hundred years, maybe really 100 years, that we're becoming reacquainted with this civilization. So to assume that we know everything there is to know about these people and their influences and their spirituality and their knowledge, I think is a big stretch. We are learning a lot, and there's things we can say and things we can't say. But my feeling, and even people who are not spiritual, the feeling you get after you leave Egypt is that there is an incredible technology that they had learned how to harness. I believe it's of consciousness and the inner technology that we all have within us, and they had connected to interdimensional forces. But before I get in to that too much more, just a note here that if you enjoy SoulPod, our app, the Soul Podcast, please like and subscribe. I ask because we are very excited and ready to grow. We're a female-founded company, small team of a couple of us, and if you want to support us, which is really supporting and serving the collective, please like and subscribe, comment, let us know what you want to hear. And for SoulPod, if you go into the app and leave us a review on the App Store, that's also really, really helpful for us. So thank you for that. Now, I think I left off with Dendara, which is Hathor's temple. And still to this day, one of my favorite things about that temple is, yes, the stargates and the portals, but there's that underbelly of the scarab at the very top of the entrance to the temple. And I just want to mention that again, because it really is quite profound and you don't see it elsewhere. But the underbelly, my Egyptian host was telling me, is telling you that it's going to share not just the new beginning, which the scarab represents, but the knowledge of the new beginning, the bare side, the backside of the scarab. That's the how. And it really felt that way at the temple, that you were being shown how to activate this technology. And so from Dendera, we went to Hatshepsut's in Luxor. Luxor for me was one of the most powerful places, both the Luxor temple, which I'll talk about, and Hatshepsut's temple. Now, Hatshepsut is a really powerful energy, queen. She is like the queen. She ruled for, I believe, 22 years at a very prosperous time for Egypt. And she's one of the 5, what my guide called Stargate kings. So she was even thought of as a king. There's a whole story about how that process happened, that she was accepted as Egypt's ruler, not just as a queen, but as a king. And she took on many masculine and traits, so the story goes, in physical life as well. But she was incredibly well revered. After her reign, there was a lot to be done about trying to destroy her legacy, but they couldn't because she was too prolific. But the temple itself is epic, and it stands alone. It's carved into the cliffside of this massive cliff. It reminded me of other structures, ancient structures, like in Jordan, Petra, that have been carved into the rock. And as you walk up these incredible steps that just keep like going and going and going, you'll find that you really do feel the queenness in that temple, the sovereignty. We talk a lot about sovereignty in Soul Pod. There's a whole journey on it. But this is stepping into your inner queen or king. And anything that's afraid of that feeling is being asked to be given up. Anything that's afraid of your, not just your power, but your sovereignty, your responsibility for life, for your life, and your ability as a creator. There can be guilt that comes along with that from this life and past lives. There can be shame that comes with that. There can be people-pleasing smallness, fear that will all come up against you in that journey to realizing your sovereignty. And as you walk into this temple, first of all, there's this amazing rose granite entryway. It's like the bottom all around. And so you really do feel like you're stepping through a threshold. And we happened to be there for dinner with our group. Shout out to Billy Carson and Mohammed Ibrahim. Got us the temple to ourselves at night for a dinner, which was very special. And there were so many of us having spiritual activation. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Now, there are some hieroglyphs, and I've talked about this before. Maybe I can find a photo to pop up there that has star and could be interpreted as great and gate or home, abode. Now, our guide translates that as the Great Stargate. This is slightly different than some of the other temples where it will say, Stargate. There seemed to be an emphasis on the bigness of this. Now, you could interpret that as the temple itself, but having the star and the gate, and there's a few other hieroglyphs that I saw there that really made me think. You could feel the gravity of this place. This was one of my favorite temples. And instantly for me, personally, just talking light being to light being here, I could very much feel immediately the presence of interdimensional energy. More so than probably anywhere else. This felt like the most interdimensional contact type of place than anywhere else I went. So immediately I'm feeling ET, I'm feeling blue beings, I'm feeling that. And for me, I was seeing that the blue beings that I'm in contact with, and many other people are too, I'm sure, are the same. And so that came through when I was there, is that they were working with the ancestors of these beings, which interestingly they said is just us now. Many women in our group experienced some pretty big activations. There is an area, if you come into the front of the temple and you go off to the right, interestingly, and I won't get too conspiracy theorist on this, this was the most protected temple that I was in. I would even argue more so than the Great Pyramid, which really was very interesting to me. It was the only place where they had some plastic barrier over the hieroglyphs. And one of those hieroglyphs that I noticed that had that protection on it was a long stem of a lotus going all the way up the wall. And at the top was a star. And so we were talking about this being the evolution of consciousness rising into the higher dimensions. That's right before you walk into this area, which was prickling with energy. And all I knew when I was in that energy is that it had an incredible amount of reverence. Powerful things had happened there. And it was really interesting because it's open, the top is open, there was no ceiling. Kind of felt like maybe it was meant to be that way. I don't know if that's the original or not. But then there's a platform and there's these steps, a couple steps that go up to this flat platform, which felt like that platform was used for something very sacred, very powerful. I'll tell you what I got on it. Take it or leave it. This is just fun light being stuff. But there are some hieroglyphs that were on that platform that if you translate them, I'll share with you what I got here. It looks like an initiate's map. So through transformation, the scarab, the current of magic rises up the stable axis, the jed, breathing life, ankh, into the sovereign power, the was. Upon the sacred height, the eye awakens, consciousness perceives itself. Energy, which we can talk about the energy being zigzags or water. A lot of people interpret it as water. Our guide says it's more to communicate energy, flow. Energy flows through wisdom from the solar source, Ra, uniting all, the basket, within the human form. There's a seated figure at the end. I'm going to read this again. Through transformation, the current of magic rises up the stable axis, breathing life into the sovereign power. Upon the sacred height, which is a triangle, the eye awakens, consciousness perceives itself. Energy flows through wisdom from the solar source, uniting all within the human form. That, for me, was one of the most powerful transmissions as far as the hieroglyphs on that platform, which again felt very powerful. Now, this is interesting, right? Because we talk a lot about the ankh and the jed. So the ankh is the bottom vertical axis, very similar to the cross. You have the horizontal axis, and then you have the loop at the top, meaning life, meaning power. I think meaning prana, chi. That's what I translate it to mean. Awakening. Now, if you superimpose the ankh, and then right below it, the jed, which is usually like it's a straight line with four kind of crosses at the top. It represents power, really, which for me, access, power, speaking to the spine, the spinal channel, the ultimate power source that we can run ourselves, consciousness through, and power ourselves up. So if the ankh at the top, the jed, this is just my own interpretation. And then at the bottom, a lot of times you'll see with the staff, and I found it only in one place, and it's something I've seen in my meditations for years. I didn't know if I would see it in Egypt. There's two little prongs at the bottom. I think that those are the flows of the Ida and Pingala channels down into the earth, the grounding. So if you do Ankh, Jed, with the bottom of that staff with the two prongs, to me, that is the energy system. That is the technology, the inner technology, and it flows perfectly with how other systems describe it. And you could also, the Ankh also can represent the toroidal field. But this was really powerful because it's talking about the current rises up the stable axis, the Jed, up the spinal channel. I get so excited. Up the spinal channel, y'all. Breathing life into the sovereign power. Awakening. Once you get to a certain level upon the sacred height, the eye awakens. This is the interdimensional capacity. Consciousness perceives itself. You find the awareness that is aware. Energy flows through wisdom from the solar source. This is the connection to source that you now have, that you may not have had access to before. It's a whole different type of experience and interfacing with not just reality, but questions that you have, healing that you want. That all gets activated, uniting all within the human form. So this to me is really representing the pinnacle of the human being fully soul realized in this dimension is what they're talking about. Soul realization, a full human embodied activation. They understood this. I have no doubt in my mind after being there that they understood this. And I think what's so powerful about knowing that is that it tells us that we can do it too. We can do what other civilizations have done, but we've lost. And I think they were very aware that this could be an outcome, that we would lose this information. Not necessarily because of power struggles. I don't really resonate with that. I think it's simply there is a easefulness in going deeper into the human experience and not remembering separation. Or not remembering, sorry, I should say, our wholeness and falling into separation. There's a certain momentum to that, but then you hit a level where you start to be forced up. And so I think the Egyptians were aware. So another thing I'll say, in that room with the platform, the visions that I got is that yes, rituals were done on that platform, sacred rites, initiations, but there's something about contact with interdimensional information that I think was initiated there in this temple. It felt like a first contact temple to me. Whether Hatshepsut was herself actually an interdimensional being, I don't know. What I do feel very strongly about is at the very least she had direct contact, and the people there in that temple had direct contact. Now I'll share something. This is a little personal, but I'm going to share it anyways because I had a meditation and I really, really want this space, this podcast, Soul Pod as a whole, to be a safe place for exploring the mystical interdimensional experience. And so I will lead with sharing some of mine. I was in a meditation the other day and this temple came up in my meditation. And the temple started speaking through me. Who is speaking through me? I'm not entirely sure, but I do know it's connected to the queens, the kings, the priests, the priestesses of these temples. And what comes through for me is the temples are with you. And they shared with me that, yes, there was interdimensional work done at this temple. And that the blue beings, they called them interdimensional light. They called it the interdimensional light. And the interdimensional light gave them almost like a device. It's like I saw it as like a blue light device, something that I've also had when my channel activated in communicating with them. So it's like, this is all connected, right? There's a reason. And this light was a reference point that the temple could work with in order to upgrade and practice vibrating, finding that frequency that the interdimensional light had left, if that makes sense. I think it was actually, I don't know whether it was the Ark of the Covenant, but something similar. It was like an actual tool that they left for them. And they're like, practice, reach this vibration, and then we can have direct contact. Now, this lines up with my personal experience ever since the blue light being materialized just over that way in my living room, which I don't know if I've talked about in too much detail, but the experience of that is that it immediately threw me into meditation. There was no time to respond because the energy was so intense that when I was in it for about 10 minutes, I did start to panic. I've been meditating for a long time. And so I can very much understand that to be in the physical presence of that type of energy is not what we're used to. So it makes complete sense to me that if you were to have increased contact with these interdimensional light beings, you would need to find a way to activate that within yourself to be able to be in resonance. So this is very exciting for me on a personal level because I'm like, this is connecting so many dots in my own spiritual journey. And I hope it's helpful or inspiring or at least fun for you. So that's what I saw about that temple. And when I walked out of the temple and I came, and it's a dark night sky, I looked up and I saw a ship overhead. So how does that show up? I mean, it's a big light in the sky that kind of responds to my thoughts and as a way to communicate and energetically. So they were there. They were very much there. And later that night, we recorded a talk that was given, and they flew right behind Billy Carson and Mohammed. So we have that on multiple videos of that contact event as well. So overall, I think my takeaways from that temple is that there is an activation beyond space and time. The other thing that the temples tell me is that they are our contemporaries, to not think about them as so much as in the past, because there's only ever right now, and we actually build the past as we become aware of it. I know that sounds really trippy, but to think of them more as our contemporaries than to think of them as long gone beings. They're very much present in the present and can be called upon, and they carry great love and wisdom. And Hatshepsut herself came forward, and it was just, oh my gosh, incredible love. And I was shown some of their sacred rites in meditation, which I don't entirely understand. They acknowledge that in the past, the interdimensional light beings have been worshipped. They show up as blue beings in a lot of the frescoes. And they said that served a purpose at a certain point. And interestingly, they made the point that it serves a purpose now because we're getting this information because of that interaction. But that's not the way they're approaching us in this space and time, is not through the lens of worshiping them. It's through the lens of almost more like teacher-student or co-creator or guide. They're not looking to be worshipped. They're looking to connect in gratitude and appreciation and love for the ultimate evolution of all, us and them. And who knows, maybe we are them just in the future. Another thing that popped into my mind at that temple was interesting, and I don't know if it has an exact meaning, but Akram Ra. So if you want to meditate on that, Akram Ra, see what comes up. I'm curious. The next temple that we went to is the Edfu temple, which is a temple for Hathor, the falcon goddess. And this is a beautiful temple. It's so well preserved. And this was just a really fun energy for me. It was very activating and very exciting, but completely different vibration than the Hatshepsut temple. Very different. So the way I think, at least at this point, about Hathor is the higher perspective. The falcon. The falcon doesn't, it's one of the only birds that doesn't feed on dead or decaying flesh. It's very, very intentional. And you can think about eagle sight or hawk sight, falcon sight. This is the ability to raise your awareness so that you can see more, appreciate more, and hold more. And you could definitely feel that in the temple. So I got called into a very specific room. I couldn't tell you what room it is at the temple, but it called to me. It was very clear. And I got separated from the group and I stood in this room meditating. And energy immediately was activating, tingling in my hands, this feeling of feeling others there. There was very much in many of these temples, I don't know if I'm communicating this in the clearest way, but there's a feeling of overlap, that you're stepping back in time with them or they're stepping forward in time with you. There is that feeling of time travel, which they also told me. Time travel is not so much travel as it is you becoming aware of more and having a higher degree or capacity to choose. Because, as the interdimensional light beings have told me, entanglement, quantum entanglement, is simply us becoming aware that there is no here or there. There is no here or there. There is no here or there. The implications of that is what we're experiencing. This is where I was asked to give up something. Heaviness in my body, in my mind, in my emotions. They were like, give it up, give it over to Hathor. Because you have to give it up in order to soar, in order to have the lift to go to those heights. So the energy was saying, and you can take this into your own life, bring in Hathor and just ask, okay, I'm ready to give up the heaviness. I have to let it go. Don't necessarily even need to know the story behind it. I have to let it go in order to move to the next level. And they were very specific. It was an energy of heaviness I had to leave behind. And I set the intention to do that. And then as I did that, I soared to the level of Hathor, to the falcon, literally like I was flying through the sky. And it felt like a third eye opening. Makes sense, right? The third eye is all about perspective beyond the human senses, interdimensional perspective. Lots of energy through the crown. This is the connecting beyond space and time. Lots and lots of love. And then right after that experience, there was a very weird series of experiences where a bunch of coincidences happened right after I exited that temple. And it was just like love bombing. I ran into certain people, had certain conversations. I'm like, I could feel the frequency shift. I had let go of some stuff that was in the way of me having those experiences, if that makes sense. I let go of weight and ease fell in. just flow, gliding, not flapping the wings, just gliding. That's what it felt like. So I think we'll stop there for today. I've got a few more temples to go through with you, and I'm going to close with the King's Chamber because that was certainly one of, if not the biggest experience. But I hope that what you take away from this is the energetics of it, and that Egypt and these concepts are accessible to you no matter whether or not you go to these temples. The only thing about actually physically going to these temples is that it helps you to further seed these frequencies so that you can stay connected to them. They made this very clear in my meditations this week. Because you can go through some grief after being in this kind of energy for a period of time. That's always there. It's always there. You can go to the temples immediately. Once you've experienced it, once you've opened to it, that channel is open. So it can really help with the integration part of something like this and of any peak experience. Once you've opened that door, the door is open. And I'll talk more about what the door is open to. And I get a little tingle through my hand. I'm sending you so much love, light beings. Stay curious, stay open. There is very exciting possibilities available to you that are beyond the analytical mind. And I hope that you can experience that for yourself. Till next time. Thank you for journeying with us today, Light Being. We hope you enjoyed the episode. And before you go, we want to invite you to explore the SoulPod app, where you can immerse yourself in daily lessons, guided meditations, and breath work to develop a soul-nourishing daily ritual and tune back into your own inner guidance system. You can download SoulPod in the App Store or directly from the show notes to start your free trial today and awaken the ancient wisdom within you.